And I mean, I'll tell you what, I have not seen worse offensive line play in a long time than that Rams offensive line. Like, first, the Cardinals don't even have their first round pass rusher, right? The first round rookie. He's on the IR. And they just bull rushed or found ways to get through I mean, that O-line play from the Rams, it actually might be the worst in the league.
Yeah, they're playing with all backups, basically. So I guess it's kind of somewhat reasonable, somewhat expected. But I mean, Stafford, they're going to have to rely on that quick game in order to not get him killed. Did you see the Bears O-line? I mean, Shane Waldron is torpedoing that offense. Bears always find a way, dude. Always.
Horrible. You know, like, you can only blame so much on Caleb Williams or DeAndre Swift when there's no time to I mean, Caleb Williams was running for his life. I think you actually have to give him some credit, right? In the sense that, look, he missed some balls, but there were also some where he's scrambling out of 3 pass rushers on top, like 3 D linemen just on top of him, and he somehow would get out and get rid of the ball. That was brutal.
What I don't understand is a lot of the personnel's the same from last year. They weren't terrible. They added some pieces and some pieces got healthier. This is a better unit. And the only real difference is you bring in Shane Waldron, who couldn't get anything out of the Seattle line, who's actually looking pretty good this year. Just like Shane Waldron was a complete failure in Seattle. They parted ways. Why did Chicago hire him? And is he the reason why their O-line is so bad now, suddenly out of nowhere? I don't know. There were questions with the Bears O-line, but they should not be that bad. That was an egregious performance by the Bears O-line. And DeAndre Swift, he just flat out sucks.
Oh, listen, if the Eagles get rid of a running back, you shouldn't sign them. Like, if the Eagles are willing to part ways with a running back, you should not sign them. So, I don't know. He's not very good, though, but we'll see what happens. Listen, it's not like the Bears offensive line was good in week 1. They won, but they had 0 offensive touchdowns. Their O-line stunk in week 1 as well.
Yeah, man. And I don't know. They weren't good last year, but they were better than this. So there's a little incongruency in my mind that I'm trying to figure out. And the only common denominator is Shane Waldron, who I have no respect for.
Yeah, well, they should be 0-2. They're very lucky to be 1-1. I keep thinking they are.
Sure.
0-2. Yeah. Hey, good morning. What's going on, everybody? Happy to have you guys with us. We start a new week. 1 week ends and 1 week begins. Oh, I like that. Monday Night Football, Falcons, Eagles. Eagles 5.5-point favorites here, 46.5-point total. No A.J. Brown today. Significant, right? And we'll see how Kirk Cousins plays, but we're here to break it all down. If I could ask one thing of you guys, first of all, follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski on Twitter. Just do that first. And while you're there, I'm over there at Laffy_D on the X. Also, atone for your sins this wonderful Monday morning. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Goes a long way for us. Otherwise, we wouldn't ask. And leave a comment down below. I enjoy these comments thoroughly. I read all of them every day when I can sneak in some time. And if you ever want to listen in podcast form, we are out there. Apple Podcast, Spotify, whatever it may be. We got you covered. So let's talk some football. By the way, Steven, thanks, man. Props to Laffy on his big TD score. Take a strut. Yeah, that was fun, Matt. We had a 5-play anytime TD round robin by 2s, by 3s, by 4s, 5-leg parlay and singles, and hit them all yesterday afternoon.
I saw your screenshots. Congratulations, man. That must have been a very exciting afternoon for you.
It was. Well, it's honestly more, like, it's exciting for me, but it's more exciting for the people in the Discord that can, that can share their bet slips with you, right? Like turning 20 into 1,000 or something like that. And you see that, and like the community, I always say it's good to have community for betting and for DFS because you can celebrate together and you can commiserate together, right? Like no matter what, everyone's kind of there, all doing the same thing. And I think that's even more amplified in betting because in DFS, you have different exposures and lineups than I do. In betting, if we're all together, we're sweating the exact same thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It's like when you're with your friends in your real life and you guys all decide randomly, if you're at, like, I don't know, the bar, watching some Monday night game with your buddies who all decide to bet one side. That's basically what the Discord is. And except you get to bet a ton of different things. And yesterday you were betting 100%.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because my last one we needed was Kyron. Like we had a plus 210 Metcalf, a plus 190 Neighbors. So it's like, okay, those are the toughest ones. And then Derrick Henry got in on a wildcat play at the goal line. And CeeDee Lamb had a crazy touchdown as well. But then it was Kyron at minus 165 was the shortest, or one of the the shortest odds. And they were down. I thought they were going to pull him, but we got it late in that blowout game. You're over there too on Discord. And do you get as egregious as Ben does with some of these college props? Because I was sweating a plus 72.5 live bet on Kent State with Ben and his group on Saturday.
Definitely don't get as egregious as Ben. Ben loves FCS games, 72 point spread, stuff like that. I play it pretty straight, just random sides and totals that we like throughout the week, and then player props, do a lot of those for college.
Anyway, you want to check it out, go to oddshopper.com. You'll see Tails right there. We have an awesome group of insiders and a ton of promos over there as well. Get you 50% off your first week or month. It's really cool stuff if you enjoy betting. But let's talk football. We've got the Falcons. And how much Alvin Kamara did you have yesterday?
It was like 9%, something like that. Basically enough to keep me afloat, but not enough to have the right combinations around it to actually get anything notable up top. What about you?
Not enough. I was overweight on, I was overweight on Stafford. Cup got hurt. I was overweight on Goff as well. And that, didn't play out all that well. And I had a lot of Baker stacks, but unless it was Godwin, it didn't matter, right? Like you would have needed the skinny. And also my one stand for the week was Daniel Jones with Malik Neighbors. Like I had Neighbors was my highest owned player yesterday, even higher than Mason. And he smashed, dude. He's sick. 62% target share in that game is ridiculous. Daniel Jones and Neighbors took down the Millie, but I didn't have the right pieces around it. And I didn't have Alvin Kamara, and you clearly needed Alvin Kamara,
That was 100% it. If you didn't have Alvin Kamara, you certainly weren't winning. You could definitely still cash.
Yeah. Could stay alive.
Yeah.
Ready to talk some Monday Night Football?
Absolutely. It's your team, man.
Yeah, we got the Birds tonight. It sucks. I much prefer these 1 p.m. games for the Eagles. They played Friday night in Brazil, and now they've got Monday night in Philly, 5.5-point favorites. So, all right, a couple things here. You and I actually want to start where you and I were talking before we went live. Matt and I always kind of have like a little pre-show conversation about the games and, the night before. We were talking about how bad Atlanta's O-line was last week. And I know you have a pretty ferocious pass rush. I mean, Watt alone is just a game wrecker. They couldn't protect Cousins. He has a surgically repaired Achilles. And on the other side, Philly pass blocked really well. They run blocked well. Pass rush win rate was really solid. Across the board in the trenches, they're a better team. They also gave up 414 yards to Jordan Love and company last week in Brazil. So I think there's a lot going into week 2. They really think there's a lot of question marks on both of these teams going into tonight's game.
There absolutely are, but I honestly think there's more questions with Atlanta. Week one with Philly, with all of the young players they're starting, this is the worst they should look all season, assuming health.
Good
like
point.
when you're talking about like Keely Ringo, Quinyon Mitchell, like DeJean, if he ever gets on the field, I know he was really hurt most of camp. But I mean, it's not even just that. You've got young players everywhere, like Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean. Most of these guys are in their first or second year, maybe their third year. Like, who are your veterans on your defense outside of like Josh Sweat? So I think this is the worst we will see Philly play really all season long. And I don't think they're going to fix everything in week 2, but this unit should improve week over week as these young players get more experience. We're talking about like first rounders, second rounders at almost every single position. They're just, 21, 22 years old. Atlanta is not that. Atlanta is like relying on veterans like Matt Judon and some of these players to be their best players on defense. And I think they'll be okay. They certainly needed a pass rusher like Judon, but it's like Judon, Terrell, And I don't know, man. Like, I don't think their defense has a lot of star power outside of a couple guys. And they don't have a lot of like highly drafted depth like the Philadelphia Eagles do across the board. And on offense, in the trenches on that side of the ball, I don't know what happened to Atlanta. Maybe it is just they faced Hayward and Watt, because I actually kind of like their O-line to begin the year, but holy smokes, they got absolutely demolished by that Steelers front. And it's a one-game sample. You have to make a tough decision if you think that's sticky or not. I'm a little worried because I do think Philly has a pretty good pass rush, maybe not as good as the Steelers. But I don't know, with all the leaks they showed in that first game, that has me a little concerned with Kirk Cousins not being able to run.
That is the concerning part for sure. And they're probably going to have to double Jalen Carter, because that's what Green Bay had to do last week, right? They just had to, like, all hands on deck to stop Jalen Carter, because he has the potential to be a game wrecking type player as well. Remember, he's only in his second year. Zach Bond was nasty. What do you know about this guy? Because as an Eagles fan, I'm watching him. Seriously, I don't know if you watched any of that game. This dude was unreal. I mean, it just came out of, and I know he's not a rookie. I think he was drafted in 2020, I believe.
Out of Wisconsin. I know him very well.
I see. This is why I ask you these things. But he was unbelievable in that game. I don't know if it was fluky, but he was flying around the field, made a really significant impact.
Yeah, Zach Bond came out of Wisconsin. He was more of a tweener as an edge rusher. And he was a guy that like got some first round hype and then eventually, like slid because of his weight. But the Eagles have had a really good track record, like rehabilitating these players that are sort of tweeners. Like we saw them do this last year. Sometimes they get players that were highly drafted, like Bond was a 3rd round pick. But, the previous team couldn't figure out how to maximize the talent. Like maybe they play a guy out of position or something. And then the Eagles, for whatever reason, are able to take them and turn them into like a real player. Like we saw Arizona almost ruin Hassan Reddick's career. He goes to Philly and then suddenly he's an all-pro. Like I don't know what they do with these guys, but yeah. I mean, Bond's also from Wisconsin, so I mean, I know I'm a little better than probably most do.
You talk about the young guys in Philly, also a new defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio too. So I think
talent maximizer by trade.
Yeah. And I think, both teams have things to work out as well, because offensive coordinator, I think you would agree with Zach Robinson. There were clearly some growing pains in week 1. I know they were facing a good defense, but like Drake London was a completely forgotten man in that game, right? Where did he go? They could get nothing going on offense. So we'll see. Each team has another week to figure it out. Where do you want to start?
Probably without AJ Brown, it's like got to be Hurts, right? The 3rd most expensive player on the slate. Where are we playing Hurts? Because you're playing Hurts, right?
You're playing Hurts. Yeah. I mean, Jalen Hurts had a terrible game last week, and they still scored 34 points and had 410 yards of offense. Like, that's crazy, right? With him having a pretty awful game.
He scored 19.5 in like his floor.
It's his floor. Yeah. And he didn't have a rushing touchdown. So, he lost a fumble, threw 2 interceptions, and still had almost 20. Also, his touchdown prop, the books are wildly divided on this today. Some have it as much as -139. Others have it at plus money. So, yeah, he's plus 105 on FanDuel to score. I like that.
That's a wild discrepancy. I would definitely take advantage of that.
Me too. Nobody has more rushing touchdowns since 2021 than Jalen Hurts, including Derrick Henry. Like, no running back has more.
I would not have guessed that. That's a wild stat.
Isn't it? 38 rushing touchdowns since 2021.
I mean, with the QB sneak stuff, which I know was up and down in that first game, there's just no real stopping him from a fantasy projection standpoint. I mean, they're playing faster. They're using motion now. AJ Brown being out is perhaps something to worry about, but also that removes just like another stud you could play at the expense of Hurts. Like at a certain point, I know we have Bijan and Saquon, but it's just like we're kind of running out of studs to play. So Hurts is still going to project really well. I guess the only real worry, something I saw this week is like one of the worst plays in Philly's offense last year was actually Hurts running when you excluded QB sneak stuff, which really surprised me. And I don't know if that,
okay.
did that
So
have anything
no,
to do with like the bone bruise or something that he had?
I don't know, but here's what it is. Hertz is still good at running when it's on a broken play or when he's escaping. The designed runs, I had a couple buddies over to watch this game on Friday, sitting right back there, as a matter of fact, and both of us are screaming because it was the same thing last year. What you're saying makes sense. If you watch these Eagles games, the designed runs are never effective. The design runs are terrible. Like when you look at Jalen Hurts actually picking up yards, they're not on designed runs. If you know, like you see Lamar Jackson kind of evading pressure and picking up big chunks, Hurts can still do that. The designed runs simply never work for him. So I don't know if they're going to get away from him, but I still think there's rushing upside with him. It's just, to me, I would probably stay away from those design runs. They haven't worked. But you know, to your point, how do you get away from him today?
Well, they're basically just last year at least, and it's a new OC. So these with a 1 game sample under his belt, these things could change rapidly, and they should. They're basically just running zone reads last year, and they were awful. But I don't know. I'm kind of more optimistic that they'll work this year, and hopefully he mixes it up more than just random zone read stuff. But you put like Kenny Gainwell or DeAndre Swift in there as a blocker for Hurts. Like, give me Saquon all day. And if you're not using your running back as a blocker, you're still playing 10 on 11. You might as well just run Saquon. But I have more optimism in Kellen more than that. So I think when they do use Hurts as a runner, like we know he can do it. It's not like Hurts slamming into the back of the O-line or something. I think this is completely design related, and hopefully Kellen can fix it.
I agree. I also like Dallas Goedert today. I mean, I think a lot of attention is going to go towards Devonta Smith, and rightfully so. But when I look at Dallas Goedert, I'm going, all right, guy played 82% of snaps last week, ran a route on almost 80% of dropbacks. You take A.J. Brown out of the offense, which is a big deal. You know, 30% target share last week. That's a big deal. Johnny Wilson is probably not going to play. He didn't practice with a hamstring on Saturday. Maybe they bring Paris Campbell up from the practice squad. What I'm getting at, though, Matt, is that Jahan Dotson ran 24 routes, was targeted 1 time. He's still new to the offense. They clearly didn't want to get him involved, despite a game where Jalen Hurts passed, you know, clearly more than he normally does. He threw 34 times, which doesn't seem like a lot, but I mean, Hurts will have plenty of games below that. They just didn't look towards Dotson at all. It was, you know, 18 combined between Brown and Devonta Smith. It was 5 for Dallas Goedert. I think you could see a pretty big expansion of Dallas Goedert's role today. Totally familiar with this offense, has a rapport with Jalen Hurts, and he's the clear number 3 in this offense once you get behind or past Barkley and Devonta Smith, and he's the clear number 2 in the passing game behind Devonta Smith. 5,800. Oh, also, you lose another big body in the red zone in A.J. Brown. And if you don't have Johnny Wilson, who's probably, you know, his only impact would be in the red zone, they don't have many guys to throw to there inside the 10.
They really don't. I almost wonder if they use more 12 personnel, which to your point is not going to hurt Dallas Goedert whatsoever. I think it would be very intelligent for them to increase the target share for Dallas Goedert. You don't have to put it at the expense of anybody, but I'm not really trying to elevate Jahan Dotson's target share. He probably operates out of the slot and gets more snaps in this game than he saw in that first one. You know, he was at the Philly ran a ton of snaps, that 76 offensive snaps, and he only had 32. Goddard was at 62. I think those ramp up like right up to 100%. And then I don't know, man. Like I think you probably see more Grant Calcaterra, who actually had he had more snaps than Jahan Dotson, didn't run quite as many routes. But Calcaterra, or however you say that, I think someone corrected me a while back. He was a receiving tight end coming out of college. He could be someone to look at too. To your point, Goddard is much too cheap. I think he slides into lineups quite nicely today.
I do too. By the way, Calcaterra was right. That was right.
That's like Eric was trying to like turn it into some fancy Italian last name or something when he was saying it on live before lock. I was like, what do you, at first I didn't even know who he was talking about. And I was like, that's how you say that name? And I don't know. I'm like, I mispronounce names all the time, and I actually like when people in the comments correct me because then I learn. But I was like, that can't be right.
It's Calcaterra. You were 100% right. Yeah.
I
It's
thought, I don't know.
You're right.
You gotta when next time you're on a show with Eric, try to like slide him
I will.
into without saying his name.
I will. I'll be like Dallas Goedert, or who's the other tight end in Philly? Yeah. There was always a running back I would get wrong from Detroit. I can't remember who it was. I would always pronounce it wrong. And remember Kyle, who we did shows with?
Yeah, Kyle
Voracek?
Dvorak.
Yeah.
He's a good dude. I went and saw him last summer.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So you, me, and Kyle. Remember we used to do like the Wednesday show?
Yeah.
He would always correct me on it, and I can't remember. I can't remember who was the Lions running back like 4 years ago.
They've been circling through him so much.
I
Like
know.
I know it wasn't Jamal Williams that you mispronounced.
No. I wish I could remember, but I can't. Yours that you always mispronounced was um Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
I believe it was Deontay,
Yep.
right?
That was from all the way back in his college days.
Oh man, I can't remember who it was. It's gonna bother me, but whatever. Do you think Goddard's reasonably priced though? Because I'm with you. I think his snap share goes close to, I mean, I think it's north of 90 tonight.
I think he's too cheap,
Me too.
honestly. And right now, we actually don't have like a fantastic projection on him. It's not bad, but I'm really curious to see where this goes throughout the day because in the mid range, I think he kind of slides in really nicely. So I don't know. This might be a stance I have to take myself because right now I would certainly rather play him than kickers and stuff. And you don't have to pay that much extra money on DraftKings to go get him.
Exactly. Nick asked, is 6'6" Johnny Wilson season? Question mark. I, I don't think he's gonna play. He missed Saturday's practice with a hamstring, Matt. It's just when you have a guy miss a practice on Saturday with a hamstring, I know it's a Monday game, but still, to me, no, it wasn't Amir Abdullah. That seems to me pretty ominous that you're not going to be out there. I can say that.
Yeah, I'm really skeptical he plays too. And I don't think Philly necessarily needs to throw him on the field. They've been very good at, and Dotson's probably, better fill-in wide receiver than they've had in the past with Zacchaeus and some of these players they've been throwing on the field at times. So I don't know. I'm not sure if he plays or not, which kind of leads to a lot of questions. He's more of, like an outside receiver where AJ Brown can play a lot. I'm not sure they really just like throw Britton Covey on the field, who's kind of like a slotty, gadgety type player. So I kind of think Calcaterra might play more because he is also a bigger body and he can kind of fill in that role. But I don't know. We'll see. If Johnny Wilson plays, I certainly have interest because he's the stone min.
Right. I would definitely have interest, even if he just catches one pass in the end zone. Mark said Goddard never seems to be in the winning lineup. And then Beasy right after said, when was the last time Goddard did anything substantial? I mean, I hear you guys, but AJ Brown played every game last year. Devonta Smith played 16 of 17. I think it's at least, you don't have to play Goddard. We're just here to talk through the game, but I think, Matt, it's pretty, no, it wasn't Joik Bell. I think it's pretty, I think it's pretty unreal. I'm just gonna be cutting myself off as I read the chat, everything. I think it's pretty unrealistic to kind of gauge Goddard's success when you have AJ Brown and Devonta Smith out there every week, like two of the premier wide receivers in football.
You just need to adjust your expectations. His target share, air yard share, like targets per route run are all going to be much lower when he's playing with more talented players. Now they will rise. Theoretically. Yep. I mean, we'll see. We could be wrong on this, but I think they rise. Like, who else do you think the targets that AJ Brown was seeing go to? Saquon? Like, you could make some arguments. I would listen to him. Dotson, maybe. I just think most likely is Goddard. Outside of Devonta Smith, of course. He should be the alpha.
I agree. Oh, thank you. We got it. Thank you. Kane. And then Riggs. Kerryon Johnson. That was it, Matt. Because I would call him Curryon Johnson. And Kyle just absolutely, for some reason, had a true disdain for me whenever I would pronounce it like that. And
That's a throwback, man.
Yeah, he'd feel the need to interject every single time. Kerryon Johnson, 20, man. Yeah, we were doing that show because he was 2018 to 2020 with Detroit.
Yeah, he sucked.
He did suck.
I thought he was going to be pretty good when he came out of Auburn. He was terrible.
He was like an early to mid second round pick too.
Mm-hmm.
Why does he have an Eagles jersey on in that?
Maybe he like was on the practice squad for his final year or something.
He had to have been because he definitely never played a game with them. But
yeah.
How much do you like Devonta Smith today as the clear number one in this offense?
A lot. It's not hard to get to him. I was building a lot of lineups this morning, and then if you forego one of the elite running backs, he's like extremely easy to fit into your lineups. Try to play around and see like where our tools liked him more. I was getting him more as a flex option. So a lot of the lineups were some of those studs up at the top, and then Devonta Smith sliding in really nicely at his 8,800 price tag. And I think that makes a lot of sense with his role in the offense. But you could use him at captain too. I mean, he's just going to give you a different build if you go that route.
Yeah. It's just weird because it is, look, I don't want to read too far into this. Is Devonta Smith better as a not complimentary wide receiver, but is he just better when you have like a big body outside threat that can be used all over the field like AJ Brown alongside of him?
I'm honestly not sure. I think he had a bad year last year compared to expectations, of course. Like this guy was being drafted in second rounds of fantasy leagues. He definitely failed if that's what you thought he was going to do. Maybe he's more of like a compiler and he needs extra targets to actually produce. I don't know, but he's not lived up to expectations in my opinion so far. Where they drafted him, no chance.
No, he was overdrafted for sure. Rushing quarterback plus a team that people think they never run, but that's not true. Like what happens is, you know what I mean? How many times what happens is they abandon the run in games, but if they're ahead, they're going to run a ton. And you have AJ Brown or the rushing. So yeah, I thought that was way too early on him for sure. I'm with you. We have to talk about Dotson. He's 4K. I mentioned he ran 24 routes on 39 dropbacks last week. It was his first game. He's new to this team, right? They only signed him in, what was it, like mid-August, late August, Matt, probably?
Yeah, it was like mid-camp.
August 22nd.
Yeah, late camp.
Yeah. That's what, 3+ weeks ago? So, you sign him pretty recently, week 1. No surprise that he wasn't heavily involved at all. But I also I think Dotson plays a lot more snaps today. Maybe you're right, though. Maybe they go with more 12 personnel, but he's still going to be on the field a lot more. I just wonder, like, are they just going to concentrate their target share around Smith, Goddard, and then a ton of work for Saquon Barkley?
I personally think that. I don't think they really have any other options. Like, I don't think you want Jahan Dotson to have 10 targets in this game, not when you have 3 players ahead of him that clearly catch passes. That's including Saquon Barkley. But to your point, I mean, he doesn't need 10 targets at 4K. I think he plays almost every snap, man. Like, who else are they going to put on the field?
Agreed. This is just not a volume of targets play, but a volume of being on the field play.
They don't have any other choice.
Anybody else, and obviously we'll pay attention if they bring Campbell up, if Wilson's out. Like you have Britton Covey, but he's a special teamer.
They have other receivers in the practice squad. That's the only thing to monitor. I don't think any of them are very good, but Marcus Rosemy-Jackson, he's a rookie out of Georgia. Danny Gray was cut by San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe they bring up 2 guys. We'll see on that. Because, they need to bring up at least one, I think. And maybe they bring up an extra tight end or something. Who knows? Like, this is news that's not huge, but it's definitely news that will affect your lineups if you don't pay attention to it. But again, I think Calcaterra is interesting, and he kind of removes some of this need to pay attention later. He's not Stoneman, but 2,400 I think is fine for a guy that actually played a lot last week.
I don't know how much time we have to spend on Barkley, unless you're lower on him than I am. But unless Philly just happens to be down early, and weird shit happens, right? Like the Saints going up yesterday and routing the Cowboys in Dallas. Nobody saw that coming, especially a Dennis Allen and Derek Carr hater like ourselves, right? But no one saw it coming. Alvin Kamara dominated. I thought that he would get more work in the passing game. They didn't need it outside of that 51-yard touchdown reception. He dominated on the ground. Dallas was terrible. If this game's competitive, Matt, I'm telling you, man, I just don't see any reason why I said this all season long, and I don't know where you are. This is where you were going into the season, but the overall consensus, and this not even a victory lap, but just like, hey, I know this team does not pay running backs. They just paid a running back a lot of money. The overwhelming consensus was like Barkley's going to be a big disappointment. Maybe he will be. Who knows? Maybe he gets hurt and he sucks or whatever throughout the rest of the way. But they have a good offensive line. Run block win rate, they were #1 going into or after week 1. And he just dominated touches. He had 24 carries, 2 receptions. Kenneth Gainwell was a distant afterthought. So if you're looking at a guy like Barkley and you go, wow, he finally has an offensive line and a functioning offense that can get past their own 40, how do you not have interest in a guy like that week in and week out?
You broke it down very well. I have a lot of interest. He was my RB5 coming into the season. And the only reason I had Jonathan Taylor ahead of him was the QB sneak stuff. The only reason. And
okay, so hold on. You were not nearly as down. Did you see all those industry takes? Like your biggest disappointment is going to be Saquon Barkley if you draft him this year. It was everywhere.
Yeah, I try not to look at them. I try very, very, very hard to isolate myself from people like that. I don't know if they're actually being honest, if they actually mean that, or if they're just trying to put out those clickbait threads.
Yeah, maybe
engagement
you're right.
farming. I don't know. Regardless, I don't think it's well researched, whether they're being genuine or not. I don't know. He went from the worst offensive line in football to a top 5 unit. He clearly was going to see work based on the contract. The only difference between like him and Taylor and the guys that were elite picks is, I think, the QB sneak.
Yeah, that is the biggest difference. But if you go back and look at this, DeAndre Swift had a lot of opportunities at the goal line and inside the 10. He just stunk. Do you remember how many times he got tripped up by his own feet, like with a wide open end zone?
Dude, I've been watching it. And not that the Bears' line has been good, but he's not changed.
No.
He's not. They've given him some opportunities, and he has not maximized the few that he's been afforded in Chicago. That was an egregious signing. See, the Bears always get in their own way, man. Always. They can't figure it out. Even when they're handed the #1 overall pick in a hypothetical generational QB, they always find a way, man.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Because it's not like they don't have the pieces.
They just have bad ownership, man. They always find a way to mess things up. When you have a bad owner, it's real easy to do that.
Yep. Stephen Leibowitz said Barkley's touchdown prop today is stupid. Agreed. Grabbed it last week. Actually, my buddy grabbed Barkley 2+ in that game, so that was fun. Nobody grabbed 3+, but pounded the overs on him last week. You've seen some big adjustments. That's why I think if you're betting touchdowns, I think the value is plus money on Jalen Hurts for sure. Like Barkley's -185, Matt. Hurts is +105.
That's bananas.
Right?
They used the QB sneak in week 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one was a botched snap. Hurts would have scored. Anyway, where do you want to play Barkley? Captain, what are you thinking?
I think he looks fine in the captain spot. We actually have him with a little tiny bit of leverage there. We actually have him, like ever so slightly positively leveraged in both. But when I ran the Sims this morning, looking at our top plays tool, this makes sense because I did get a lot of Barkley in both captain and flex. So I have absolutely no problems playing him anywhere. I think it's just a roster construction thing with how expensive he is. I did have trouble getting the 3 studs in lineups at times, like Bijan, Barkley, and Hurts. So I think The only real hole you can poke is if you want to play the other two really expensive guys at the expense of Barkley. And there are constructions where you could certainly make that work. It's really hard to poke holes in any of the elite three players.
Yeah, that's just, it's probably the best way to put it. You're right. Any interest in anyone? I'll say this. If Johnny Wilson's active and he's fine, I would take some shots down there, just super cheap. He's the cheapest guy that isn't the dead min. Essentially, he's the cheapest guy that's going to play. I think that's fair to say, Matt, right?
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, like Kenny Gainwell at 2,800, maybe they get him more involved this week. I just don't necessarily know why they would want to. He's not good.
I think he kind of like does weird things to your offense too. Like you're not taking Saquon off the field. So what are you playing? Two backs? You can't really like threaten a defense with two backs like you can with two tight ends. Calcaterra blocks a lot and he's a good receiver. Maybe not good, maybe like a slightly below average receiver, but what can Gainwell really do? He can't line up out wide. He can't run routes like a receiver. He's decent at pass blocking, but I would rather have a tight end if it's a choice 1-for-1 between the two. He can't line up as a tight end. So, I mean, you're putting yourself in weird personnel packages that the defense has an easier time defending. I don't see the two RB stuff, but I do see the two tight end stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think the only reason Gainwell saw 20% of snaps, Barkley looked a little bit like shaken up after one early in the first half, like around the 2-minute mark, and came off for a handful of plays. No one talked about it, but I saw him come off slow and it wasn't really discussed. But anyway, is there anyone we haven't talked about before we move to Atlanta?
Not really. We even hit on like 4 guys that might not be active.
Yeah,
one of them will be between like Paris Campbell, Gray, and Rosemary Jackson, or depth tight end. I don't know, Stoll, something like that. Someone's going to be active and they're cheap, so they might end up in your lineups. But you have to pay attention.
I mean, listen, we do our job around here. You know, we do our job. We try and get as much as humanly possible jammed in there for you guys. And of course, you know, in the end, you make your own decisions. I lean on the tools a ton too with these showdowns. Just hands down, our showdowns. Ben was saying yesterday, he's like, dude, if I built showdown lineups by myself, I would lose. He's like, I'm horrible at showdown. I just run the sims. And that's the way to do it. I had amazing results with the sims last year. Nice week last week as well. They just make such a considerable difference because I think one of the reasons for that, Matt, is that when it comes to spots like this, you have to be really comfortable with getting ugly. And it's so hard sometimes to do that with just your brain, right? Like it's so hard to build lineups and go, you know what? That is a positively simmed, like that is a positive ROI lineup. That is getting good leverage and not just a bad lineup. When you do that in your head with some of these showdowns, it's really tough to justify some of that stuff. And it's going to put your head in a pretzel.
We talked about it last week. Once we actually unleashed the Sims tool, I realized I'd been making a large mistake for years and just kind of ignoring kickers in showdowns when they're actually really good plays when they come in with low ownership, which is the case a lot of the time, as it is today. And we'll get to the kickers, but that was a huge leak in my game that I found immediately.
For sure. I found many leaks. And, you know, one of them was not leaving enough salary when you can, or even just like being willing to go with the 5-1 onslaughts, even in a game where you don't think you should, because it's not always about the players. It's about the builds. If that sounds weird, you'll understand it once you start building lineups out. But if you guys ever wanted to check any of these out, I talked to our guys that handle the links in the description and stuff. They consolidated everything into one link. So if you click in the description, the join Stokastic, and you go down there, now you can, like Jordan pull it back up, Jordan, for anybody that wants to see this. You go to that and you have the monthly and weekly. So if you're looking at monthly, you can see the essentials for a casual player, the light, for someone that loves DFS, may not be super dedicated, but wants the single lineup simulator that Matt and I are going to build a lineup with in a minute. The post-contest sim, ownership, projections, point projections, and then pick six, underdog, prize picks, the lineup, all that stuff. And then core for a little bit more each month or each week. Then you're getting all of the stat projections, the late swap tool. You're getting the actual contest generator and contest simulator. So that includes a whole lot of additional stuff. Then Elite Max is just for the, the hardcore player. You get everything, build up to sim up to a 10,000 lineups in the contest generator and in sims. But just to show you one, because we always shout out our boys who rock the avatar and use the tools. We had one yesterday, Matt. I just thought this was great. Nick hit us up. He said, took down the 75K 3 max for 10K. Nick Rue, listen every day and have been using the single lineup sim. Perfect for a dedicated casual like me. Thanks for all you do. When I see that, I love it, because the dedicated casual is exactly why we built the single lineup sim. Someone that wants to win money, knows what they're doing, but also loves hand building lineups and getting instant feedback after they build them. And then they can go back to the drawing board.
There's a lot of ideas that people have that are just really hard to keep together in your head. Someone's over-owned, under-owned, whatever it may be in a single slate. And even if you have like a really good read on the slate, it only takes one small mistake. And that's a great way to get direct feedback on a lot of your ideas. Like, oh, maybe this guy isn't actually as owned as I thought he was going to be, and he sims really well. Or maybe my take was a little bit wrong on this, and he's actually a little over-owned compared to what I thought, and the sims poorly. So great way to actually get legitimate feedback and make sure your hand builds are profitable in the long term.
100%. Anyway, that link will take you to everything you need, guys. You don't need to do like individual links. One link will show you everything you need. Jeremy said, I just signed up for Light this week. Awesome. Join the Discord, guys. When you jump in, make sure to join the Discord. Questions, comments, great community, office hours. So like AMAs and everything to help you fine tune your game. We don't just, give you the tools and they're like, hey, good luck. We want you to win with them and know how to use them. So Jeremy, do the same, man. Jump in the Discord, say what's up and ask questions if you have them. All right. Choke Hold'em said, try the Sims. Yeah, brother. Yeah. Hell yeah. Choke Hold'em's our guy. Anyway, Atlanta. I don't know what to make of Kirk Cousins. Also, the whole Monday Night Football thing for him, like 3-13 all time, or 3-10. Sure, but he's also won 3 of his last 4, so I don't read too much into that at all. I truly don't. And he stunk last week. It was against a good defense. New offensive coordinator, new quarterback, didn't play in the preseason, coming off a surgically repaired Achilles. Maybe he's better this week, Matt. Maybe he isn't. I don't know. I want to say he is. I want to think that he is better. Maybe not markedly better, but better.
Yeah, I think so too. I saw a really funny tweet. It was like, imagine if they started adding games before the season where guys could knock off rust. It's like, yeah, Kirk Cousins doesn't play a single snap in the preseason and then goes out and has a game like this. And people are like, oh, it's just rust. Yeah, well, that'll happen sometimes. The real concern I have with the offense is just outside of, Kirk. Okay, I have more than one concern. First of all, Kirk in the shotgun every play, no play action. Offensive line, terrible. Bad at run blocking. Bijan had like 3.5 yards per carry. Bad in pass blocking. Kirk was under a ton of pressure and he can't move. That's a huge concern. Third, Ray McCloud has 7 targets. What are we doing? What in the world are we doing with Ray McCloud with 7 targets, Drake London 3, Pitts 3?
Crazy.
What are we doing?
Crazy.
If you don't make drastic adjustments, fire this coaching staff week 2. Inexcusable, man. Like, you can't have it. Cannot have it.
You may sound hyperbolic, but I always go back to Ben in 2022. Our boy Ben Rosser. You do a ton of shows with him. I do a ton of shows with him. And he said after Nathaniel Hackett made that decision against the Seahawks. Remember that game? I know you do.
I watch your show, so I was listening when you guys were talking about this the other day.
Okay. I love calling back to that because it's fun just to get Ben being like, well, yeah, he's a moron, but people would have looked at Ben and been like, settle down. And then you look back and he was 100% justified, right? He was vindicated in saying that he would have done that. Cause you can see how coaches make decisions early on that could kind of, foreshadow exactly what you're going to get going forward. And to your point, if this coaching staff comes out with a similar game plan and underutilizes, almost doesn't use at all, Drake London, and the game plan is terrible once again, and they come away with hardly any points, you're right. Like, why extend the inevitable?
I'm not a rocket scientist. I can't call NFL game plans. But one thing I do know is that Ray McLeod, who's been on almost all 32 NFL teams, should not be out targeting Kyle Pitts and Drake London 2-1. I don't care if and that's two players. It's not like you can put bracket coverage on two guys. It's not how it works. And that doesn't explain any of the play action, shotgun stuff. There's just a lot of questions. And I don't want to overreact. It's one game. People make mistakes. They could very well go back to the drawing board and say, holy smokes, we did a terrible job with that game plan. We got to work on things. Right. And it could be better. We don't know. But that was not a good showing. And it's a concern. And I think it's also kind of why, we're looking at a spread here of 5.5 points when they were horrible in week 1.
So do we go back to London?
I'm going to he's way too talented to not play.
Yeah.
But we've run into this for years now. Like, it's kind of crazy. They go from Arthur Smith.
I know.
Who did this every single week. And everyone this offseason is like, it's wheels up for Bijan, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. And then the very first game, we get the Arthur Smith clone calling plays. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know how you don't play Drake London at this price. He was not left in the expensive tier. He came down. And I don't know, man. Like, if you want to make a decision for yourself and say, this coach is a moron, I don't know what they're going to do with targets, I would get it. But I don't know how you could go into games without Drake London not being a priority. So I have to play him.
Yeah, you have to. Also, you saw somebody like Quinyon Mitchell. I actually thought he acquitted himself well, Matt, in his first game, but he also he also showed that he was a rookie at times. And Darius Slay is aging. As much as I think there is some talent in the secondary, it's not lost on me that this is also one of those teams, like, there's still gaps. There's still holes in this defense for sure. So I'll go back there. What about Pitts?
Pitts, I think, is the same thing, man. Like, the 3 targets were egregious. The only question with Pitts is he's never been good. He had that decent rookie season, which came on the back of volume. And since then, he's been terrible. And everyone is just chalking it up to Arthur Smith. I'm not so sure. He would have had like 2 fantasy points if he wasn't left wide open on a blown coverage in the end zone where Kirk almost didn't find him. So I don't know. Pitts isn't really, I'm not sure he's cut out for the NFL. He's a tight end who's not very good at blocking and has shown to be a lackluster receiver compared to some of the other options in the league. So I'd rather play London than Pitts straight up, but it's not like I'm going to have 0. He should be the number 2 pass catcher in this offense. They just don't have anybody, unless you want to say Bijan is that.
Man, I was actually, I wasn't nearly as excited for Drake London as I was for Pitts, only because Pitts was going way later. And I thought, like, this will finally be the year. Like, hey, the guy had 1,000 yards as a rookie. Why? I don't know. If it's for you, is it Pitts at 6,800 or Goddard at 5,800? Because I think for me, it's Goddard.
I'd rather save the money with the better offense. And I don't honestly know what the role is for Pitts. There's a lot of uncertainty with the roles here. Ray McLeod only played 30 snaps.
How is that possible? What was his target share per route run?
Oh, enormous. If you gave it, he'd like be if you didn't do any manual adjustments and you just went on the week 1 stats, he'd be like breaking projection models.
Absolutely. So he ran 19 routes. And
he was targeted on 7 of them. It's almost 50%. Like 38% or something.
Something, yeah. Like let's say 40%.
The average is like 19 to 20%. Like, if you just threw some random receiver on the field, NFL average, you'd be targeted on like 19% of your routes.
Yeah. It was,
and the best ones are at like 30.
This is 37%. Yeah. It's crazy. If you had to rank, what's up?
It's the 8th year breakout.
Yeah. Nice work, dude. You were 1 percentage point off. So among McLeod, Pitts, Mooney, London, are you let me get the pricing. Hold on 1 second. McLeod's 3,000, Mooney's 54. So there's that. London is 7,800 and Pitts is 6,800. So none of them are super expensive. That's the one thing. I think London at that price, to me at least, and people, you may be grossed out after we won. At that price, London is still far and away the number one in this past for tonight. Like even based on salary, $7,800 on Drake London for me. I'll go back to the well and I'll take my lumps if he ends up not being used, but that's just too cheap.
I agree with you. The big thing I would watch here is the ownership throughout the day, because essentially every one of these Atlanta studs has a Philly counterpart in a similar price range, in a similar role, where I think you prefer the Philly one just for the security, and they're favored and they've shown to be a competent offense through 1 week. I'm not sure Atlanta's that. But if they're all under-owned, like I'm okay making a pivot Devontae Smith over to Drake London. I'm okay making a pivot Goddard over to Kyle Pitts, or even like a cheap wide receiver, whoever it is from Philly, over to Darnell Mooney. I know the price ranges aren't directly one for one in a lot of those cases, but they're close enough where I think you can make some decisions and pivot over to some Atlanta guys if their ownership is low enough. I just don't buy that their roles are going to be what we saw in week 1.
Yeah. They can't be. You can't have that. You just can't have that. So I'm on board. I would put, I'm not buying into the Ray McLeod thing. I think I'd still put, I honestly might do him in order of salary. The only question is, would I go Mooney, then Pitts? I think the only reason I might go Mooney over Pitts is because they might try to use him in some ways like Jaden Reed was used last week against the Eagles, which worked out really well for them. Mooney has a lot of speed. So, he's a little diminutive fella with speed. I think Mooney might actually be used in some interesting ways today. I don't hate him, actually. I could see some decent opportunities there.
You could make arguments that he's better than Pitts, just straight up. They both had 3 targets. Mooney dominated him in air yards. Pitts has never been a target share monster since that first year in the league. I have no issues pivoting from Pitts to Mooney whatsoever.
I think I'd go Ray fourth, though.
Me too. There's no way that 37, whatever it is, percent target per route rate persists. No way. I'll bet a lot of money on it.
Could you imagine a guy like, well, you're only going to play a third of the game, but we're going to target you 50% of the time you're out there?
Be pretty sick roll.
It'd be awesome. Yeah, you'd probably stay healthier. Hey, hit that thumbs up if you guys haven't done so yet. We'll build a lineup here in 1 second. I just want to get Matt's thoughts on Bijan. And I did want to say one more thing. There was a question earlier. I forget who it was. He said he finished second in the 10 cent yesterday. Does that count for Hall of Fame? If you didn't chop, if it wasn't more than a 3-way chop, and if you had the Stokastic avatar, then yeah, just tweet us your wins at Stokastic HOF. Look, I tell you guys all the time, even if you're not in the spot to, jump on and grab a subscription right now, maybe financially you're not there, which is all good. Maybe you're just playing for fun, but you're playing a few bucks a week. Go to stokastic.com/HOF. Download the avatar, okay? Because one of them, there's 6 beautiful, they're sick. Look at that. 6 avatars. Use them wherever it is you play, right? FanDuel, DraftKings, Owners, Box, Yahoo, doesn't matter. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. It could be a 10-cent entry or 100. It doesn't matter. All you got to do is finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more and tweet us your wins at Stokastic HOF on Twitter. And you're getting, first time you win, because now you can win many times a year. First time you win, $200 value. Sims all access, max package for any sport you want. Second time, let's say you win a month later. Another month, $200 value, plus another week of any sport you want. So it's basketball season 2. Oh, you got football and basketball. Third time you win, gold tier. So it's bronze, silver, gold. $550 value. Sims all access monthly. Every tool for every single sport that we have. And if you get into the Ring of Honor, $20,000 win or more, you get the custom engraved Stokastic ring. There they are. I had the first batch sent to my house so I could show you guys. They're really cool. And the names of whoever you are on the ring as well, on top of all of that. No reason not to do it. I mean, I think it's the best rewards program out there that we have. And if you were to happen to win a milli, I'm not telling you, we didn't even put it up there yet, but it will be fantastic because we got big plans for whoever does that rocking the avatar. Anyway, stokastic.com/HOF. Bijan Robinson, Matt, and then we can build a lineup. I'll say last thing. I don't love defenses here tonight, but I think there could be some opportunistic spots, so I'm never fading them. Hurts has been careless with the ball, fumbles, interceptions. Cousins can be careless with the ball, so there is that. And that defensive line for the Eagles could wreak some havoc. And I like kickers in what should be a high-scoring game. So my guess is, once again, I have a decent amount of both.
I agree with you. I prefer the Eagles defense if playing one, but out of both the two defenses and the two kickers, I got the most of Jake Elliott. I think that just comes from the Eagles being favored by 5.5 points. He's a very good kicker too. So there's
I have
no
a lot of
issues right
Elliott
there. Yeah, me too. A lot of Elliott compared to Young-Ho Koo. Young-Ho Koo is more expensive than Elliott. That honestly, I think that's basically what it comes down to. How did that happen?
I don't know. How is that? I mean, Elliott's good.
I know, and they're favored. Seems like a glitch in the pricing.
Young Wei Koo.
That's how you say it?
What, you couldn't tell from the spelling? You can.
I don't know, man.
I'm joking. You can, doesn't look at all like Young Wei Koo. It is.
Well, Eric's trying to turn all these things into Italian names. If you told me, and I mispronounce enough names where you're like, that's not how you say it. I'm just like, all right, how do you say it?
I think you get a full pass on Young Wei Koo. H-O-E. Look, maybe this is my cultural ignorance here, and please forgive me. But when I read that, I see Young-Ho Koo for sure.
I try on the pronunciations. I'm just wrong a lot. It is what it is.
I've told
Can't always
people,
get them right.
I've told people before that I unabashedly do not care if I get kicker pronunciations right. I just don't know enough about them to care. And we only talk about them on show. Do you know how many times you and I come into a showdown slate and I have to figure out who the kicker is for these teams?
Yeah, it's the same as me, man. And to put it, I think, as bluntly as possible, you only have so much time in a day. We're very busy this time of year. Would you prefer I had an in-depth kicker breakdown or know who might play for Johnny Wilson? Those are your alternatives.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. All right. What are we doing with Bijan today? Super involved last week.
Dude, I'm having a really hard time with Bijan because our tools love him. And I'm not sure if I agree. He's coming in with more ownership than Saquon Barkley, but we still have him a little higher up in our tools in terms of leverage. And they're only separated by $200. Obviously monitor this throughout the day, but my first instinct was to play more Saquon Barkley, but our tools really like Bijan. So, I don't want to just completely forego everything the tools are telling us. This is something I'll probably need to monitor very closely through the day, but it also could just be everyone likes all of the Eagles players more. Like, you want to play at least one Atlanta stud. Bijan just might be the one that's most secure. And honestly, after that week 1 box score, he looks like it to me. But I prefer Saquon right now 1-to-1.
Okay, so do I. And they're saying that Tyler Algier is going to get more involved. So silly. It's like you don't hear anything about London and any of these other guys, but it's like, man, we got to get Tyler Algier more looks this week. What are you talking about? I don't know,
dude.
You want to build a lineup before we get out of here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I want to see my exposure in the Sims at captain. Okay, so Jalen Hurts at captain, I have the most of, for sure. Bijan actually second most at captain. Let's build one with Jalen here.
All right, I'm in.
All right. Fire away.
I think we go right to Goddard second.
Love it. That was going to be mine as well. We have
Took
25
care of the stack, yeah.
Yep. We have Goddard 25% in the flex. If you ran the Sims and ran the Sims and favored 150 of them. Jordan, do me a favor, do large field contest, 25 to first up top. This is the single lineup sim we were talking about, guys. You get instant feedback on every lineup. We sim it against the generated contest that we have before that. Hurts, Goddard. All right. You know what? If you want to go, like, I have no problem going Barkley here too, but let me throw Drake London in.
Yeah, no problem with Drake London. We both like him. I think it's a buy low. And we
Great.
still have a ton of money left over, man. We can easily get Saquon or Bijan. You want to try one of them?
Yeah,
All right, let's
absolutely.
go Saquon. I think you and I both prefer him.
We do. I don't think the tools do right now, but
They
we do.
don't.
Give me Jake Elliott.
Okay, Jake Elliott. So
Oh, are
then,
we in no man's land?
not really. We can play Mooney.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, we actually have an option here that's not too bad.
Or Young Wei Koo.
Young Wei Koo. Sorry, Mr. Koo.
The only reason I corrected you on that is because it's just there's no way that anyone knows. The only reason I know that is because someone told me, oh, it's Young Wei. All right, 28%. Not bad. What happens if you were to go Bijan instead of Barkley? Let's try this, okay?
It's probably going to look sick.
I'm gonna go Bijan instead of Barkley and then Younghoe Koo over Mooney and see what happens.
Do it.
So Hurts, Goddard, London, Robinson, Elliott, Younghoe Koo. -2.
Weird. Maybe it has to do with the roster construction side of it.
Probably. Yeah. That's interesting.
That's good though. Our first run with Saquon was better.
I'm just swapping Mooney out or Mooney back in to see what happens. I want to see how. Okay, 11. Yeah, so it's ballpark, same thing. 31%. So actually, it looks like it didn't make a big difference between Barkley and Robinson. So I would rather just have Barkley in that lineup.
Me too.
We were asked if we could build a FanDuel lineup. Let's do that, Matt, before we get out of here.
Okay.
It's definitely different, right? You're not paying an additional price at the MVP. So I mean,
All right. Got FanDuel up. I'm ready.
I think we go back to Hurts here, don't we?
There's a bigger gap between Hurts and Saquon at captain. I think Hurts is an absolutely fine play. That's the only reservation I have is you can save a ton by playing Saquon.
Yeah, but it's the same price everywhere. You don't pay 1.5 for MVP on FanDuel.
Right.
So I'm saying you can save, but are you suggesting we don't have Hurts in the lineup at all?
No, I was just saying if you want to go like Saquon captain, he's a lot cheaper. So I think probably should have noted this. I think he'll be a little under-owned.
Gotcha. Okay,
So
now we're on the same page. I got you.
I want to play them both. I think we should start with these two guys. How you configure them, I think, depends largely on what you're playing. Hurts, Hurts should be mega chalk on this platform.
Yeah. On FanDuel, oh my God. On this
in captain, yeah.
Yeah, this format. Let's try Barkley.
Barkley captain?
Why not? Might not sim out great, but let's do it. I mean, I look at Barkley, he could easily be the optimal MVP on FanDuel for sure.
I think so too.
All right, Barkley, Hurts. Let's go. Because Goddard's price isn't that much cheaper than Smith. Let's go Devonta in this one over Goddard.
No problem with that. I think there's ways to actually make this work too. Mooney is really cheap on this platform. Mooney's 8K. Let's try throwing him in there and see what we get left over.
I feel like we need to leave salary. Like if we go Goddard at 9,500 and max this out, there's no way that's positive ROI. I just can't see that being the case.
Well, you could also play Dotson at 7.5. You could play McLeod at 7K flat. I don't like going as cheap on FanDuel because they just keep the floor pricing much higher than DraftKings. So you don't really benefit from playing, like the guys that are normally $200 on DK,
Yeah, because DraftKings can range from like 200 to 13,000.
Yeah, and you just don't have that on here.
All right, who do you want to go? Dotson, last spot?
Let's throw it in there and see what's up.
All right, basically Eagles onslaught, huh?
It plays to the spread, and I don't think we're super chalky because we left salary and we have Saquon over Hurts.
Leaving 2,000 left over. Jordan, is that it? -4? Yeah, -50. I'm not good at FanDuel, Matt. I'm just much better at building DraftKings.
Okay, take out Dotson, throw in Goddard. If we max out salary but play the much better play, do we get anything better?
By the way, I did do it a minute ago, and I put Elliott in there over Dotson, and we got I was like set plus 17% or something. So not
Negative
terrible.
49.5.
Yeah, that's not great.
Don't play that lineup, guys.
-2. All right, so we're in business.
I imagine that's because of the dupes.
I think it's the dupes for sure, and I think it's Barkley over Hurts at captain. Like, I bet if I went Hurts and Barkley here with Hurts at MVP, let's just see. This will be the last one before we get out of here. So Hurts, Barkley, Devonta, Mooney, Dotson with Hurts at MVP. Let's see if that changes anything. 33%. You're muted.
There we go.
That's a good one. That's a good note to go out on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, follow Matt over at Matt_Gajewski. Check him out over on Tails as well. Oddshopper.com. You can click Discover Insiders. He's right there. Same with me. 50% off first week or month. Less than $5 a week. Less than $15 a month. NFL 24 is the promo code. Say what's up in the Discord. Come out. We were having a great time yesterday. Aside from that, we'll see you over here on Stokastic in the Discord. We'll see you on Twitter. We'll see you back here tonight for Live Before Lock, Monday Night Football. As always, appreciate you guys watching. Peace.